It's knowing exactly what to do, knowing you could save someone's life and still feeling like the world has already decided you don't belong in the room. I've been there, sitting in the back, watching everyone rush past the person who could help because he didn't look the part, because a hoodie doesn't come with credibility, because being 17 and black means you're expected to stay quiet, even when someone's gasping for air just feet away. But what happens when the kid no one sees stands up anyway? What happens when doing the right thing costs you everything you've worked for, but you do it anyway? This isn't a story about being heroic. It's a story about being human in a world that keeps asking you to prove it. Now, let's get started. At 36, 0 feet above the Atlantic, while most passengers were beginning to drift off under dimmed cabin lights, 17-year-old Malik Johnson sat upright in seat 42B, too alert to even blink. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not on this flight. Not heading to Zurich. Not wedged between a snoring businessman and a woman muttering in her sleep with her knees pulled into her chest. He was supposed to be in his high school chemistry lab, organizing petri dishes and saving up for community college like the rest of the kids on Chicago's South Side. But here he was thanks to years of saving, a partial scholarship, and the sheer belief of one woman, his mother. He clutched a stack of laminated flashcards like they were sacred. Symptoms of pulmonary embolism, early warning signs of oxygen deprivation during pregnancy. The information flickered in his head, but his mind wasn't on the cards anymore. A woman in first class was gasping for air. He had heard the sound even through the thick curtain that separated economy from the front of the plane. It was faint, but unmistakable shallow, rapid, panicked breathing. Then came the cry. "Please, somebody help her." It ripped through the hum of the engines like a crack of thunder. People sat up. Some peered toward the front of the cabin. Others froze in that uniquely human instinct of not knowing whether to act or stay hidden behind silence. The voice came again, trembling, male. "She's not breathing right, please someone. My wife needs help." Malik twisted in his seat, but he couldn't see beyond the curtain. His heart raced not from fear, but recognition. He'd heard that same cadence of terror before on a Tuesday afternoon when his mother collapsed in their kitchen, clutching her chest and trying to form words with lips that turned a strange, cold shade of blue. The same symptoms, the same sound. His fingers tightened on the seat rest. Flight attendants rushed forward with the trained calm of professionals trying to contain panic. Overhead bins snapped shut. Murmurs grew louder. "Is there a doctor on board?" one attendant called, voice high and tight. "Medical emergency in first class." The words bounced down the aisle like a warning bell. Passengers began turning, shifting, whispering. Some even stood up in their seats, trying to peer toward the front. No one looked at Malik. Not once. He wasn't wearing a white coat. He had no letters behind his name. Just a black hoodie with a fraying hem and jeans with a bleach stain on one knee. No one ever asked kids like Malik to speak up. And even when they didn't listen. He stayed seated. Because he knew deep down, maybe too well what would happen, if he stood up and said, "I think I know what's wrong." They'd look at him, then look past him, then tell him to sit back down. Still, the cries from the front grew sharper. The woman's breathing is more erratic. Another shout, "There must be a doctor." Malik's eyes darted across the aisle. A man in a suit slowly stood white, maybe in his 60s. His voice boomed, "I'm a financial analyst, not a doctor." He threw his hands up and backed away from the pod seat where the woman lay. And that's when it hit Malik like ice water to the chest. No one else was coming. He glanced at the laminated card still clutched in his hand. Pulmonary embolism, sudden breathlessness, blue lips, dizziness. Risk increases during pregnancy. His hand trembled slightly, not from doubt, but from knowing exactly what was happening, and also knowing that the people who needed to hear him probably wouldn't. He had lived in the shadow of those assumptions all his life, walking through department stores with security trailing him, watching mothers grip their kids tighter when he passed by. It never surprised him anymore. But tonight, it hurt in a way it hadn't before. Because this wasn't about shoplifting or school discipline or being the only black kid in the AP class. This was about life and death. About a woman whose baby might die, while the plane full of people waited for someone official enough to help. He looked around again. Nobody moved. The curtain to first class flapped open for a second. He caught a glimpse of her, blonde hair matted to her forehead, mouth gasping like a fish pulled from water, her eyes darting in panic. Her husband knelt beside her, voice cracking. The man looked powerful, rich, but right now, he looked completely powerless. Malik closed his eyes. He could still hear his mother's voice. From that day she nearly died. Not the panicked version, but what she'd whispered to him later, after the paramedics left. You didn't freeze. You didn't wait for help. You were the help. Now he was on a plane, 36, 0 feet in the air, and no one was coming. He swallowed hard. His hand went up. I'm not a doctor, he said aloud, voice shaking, but I think I know what's happening. The words hung in the air like smoke. For a beat, no one moved. Then came the response. A flight attendant turned her head slightly, eyes scanning him, pausing, hesitating. And that was the moment. The invisible line, the one between being ignored and being seen. When the flight attendant turned toward Malik, there was something in her expression, an almost imperceptible flicker of doubt before professionalism masked it. Her name tag read Janice. She hesitated just a second too long. What do you mean? She asked, cautious, as if afraid of being fooled. Malik stood slowly, his knees brushing the back of the seat in front of him. I think she might have a pulmonary embolism. I've seen it before. My mom had one. Passengers began to stir. Some shifted to watch. A man 2 rows back scoffed under his breath. Janice narrowed her eyes, caught between urgency and protocol. Are you in the medical field? I'm 17, Malik answered plainly. But I've been taking care of my mom for 5 years. She has lupus, heart failure, and COPD. I've had to learn things. Real things. Janice opened her mouth, then closed it again. Another voice called out from first class. She's passing out. That broke her. Come with me, she said quickly, grabbing the emergency kit and motioning for Malik to follow. He could feel the stares on his back as he moved down the narrow aisle, the unspoken judgment trailing behind him like a second shadow. Some eyes widened in curiosity, others narrowed in suspicion. A few avoided looking at him at all, as if doing so would validate what was unfolding. As the curtain to first class was pulled open for him, it was like stepping into another world. Leather seats, warm towels, soft lights, champagne glasses, still half full. And then there was her Emily Whitmore's lumped sideways in her reclining pod, her lips pale blue, her hands trembling slightly on the curve of her stomach. Her husband, Alan, was at her side, white-knuckled and red-eyed. He looked up when Malik entered and froze. Who is this? Alan barked. Janice jumped in. No doctor on board. This young man thinks he knows what's going on. Alan's face twisted. What? A kid? You brought a kid? She's got swelling in her left leg, right? Malik interrupted gently, locking eyes with Emily. Started before the flight? Emily nodded weakly. Pain when you breathe? Malik asked again, kneeling beside her. Feels like it gets sharper every time? Her head moved in the faintest eyes. It's a clot, he said, mostly to Janice now. Likely a pulmonary embolism. The clot probably started in her leg and moved to her lungs. I need aspirin. Oxygen. We have to elevate her legs now. You're not a doctor, Alan said again, this time not shouting, just lost. I know, Malik said quietly, but I've seen this before. If we wait, she and the baby could... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Janice reached into the kit, handing Malik what he asked for. He moved with the grace of someone who had done this before, not in a hospital, not in scrubs, but on a living room couch in a 1-bedroom apartment on South Peoria Street while ambulances took 30 minutes too long to arrive. As he placed the oxygen mask over Emily's mouth, she caught his hand. Her grip was light, but her eyes were full of trust. For a second, Malik felt a quiet shift. Not from Alan, not from the crew, from her, the woman whose life he was trying to save. He was no longer invisible to her. 5 years earlier, when Malik was 12, his world had gone silent. His mother collapsed on the bathroom floor in front of him. The sound of her body hitting the tile that thudded replayed in his head for months afterward. There had been no one else home, no neighbors to call, no backup plan. So Malik called 911, then did what he could, watched how her chest moved, repeated her name until she came back, asked her questions, noticing which answers scared him more than silence. When the EMTs arrived, they told him he'd done everything right. That night, Malik didn't cry. He read everything he could find about congestive heart failure on his mom's broken iPad. He didn't sleep until 4 a.m. The next morning, he stole an old notebook from school and began writing down symptoms, drug interactions, warning signs. He didn't stop for 5 years. Back on the plane, the oxygen was working. Emily's color began to return, slowly, like sunrise. Her breathing steadied. Janice brought the captain word of the situation. "We're making an emergency landing in Reykjavik," she told Malik. "Etta, 40 minutes. Keep her calm. Panic burns oxygen," he said. "Tell her to breathe for 2 now, her and the baby." Janice blinked, caught off guard by how steady he was, how calm, how far he was from being just a kid. Alan sat quietly, stunned. His wife's hand still clutched Malik's as if it anchored her to life. Finally, Alan spoke. "What's your name?" "Malik Johnson." A pause. You saved her." Malik didn't answer. He just kept checking her vitals, eyes on her chest, her face, the rise and fall. Alan watched in silence, something painful flickering behind his expression. He didn't say it aloud, but in his eyes, the words sat heavy. "I misjudged you." When the plane finally landed, Icelandic EMTs took over. Malik stepped aside without a word, letting them lift Emily gently onto a stretcher. Alan moved with her, stunned but grateful. Malik stood at the edge of the terminal gate, breath fogging in the cold air that leaked through the open hatch, his backpack still slung over one shoulder. His interview in Zurich? It had already started, and he wasn't going to make it. He didn't tell anyone that, not even Janice. He just sat down in the gate lounge, legs trembling from adrenaline, alone again. Until Alan returned. He didn't say anything at first, just sat beside Malik on the cold bench, rubbing his palms together. "I would have paid anyone anything to save her," Alan said, voice barely above a whisper. "And it was you, a kid I never would have looked at twice." Malik stared straight ahead. "I'm sorry," Alan said. Malik let the silence sit. Then, softly, "It's okay. You're not the first." Alan looked at him. "You won't be the last either," Malik said. And that was the weight of it. Not the saving, but the knowing. Knowing that even after saving a life, Malik would still have to explain why he belonged in the room. The hospital in Reykjavik was sleek, cold, and unfamiliar. Everything about it felt quiet, sterile-like, a place suspended in time. Malik had never seen anything like it. Fluorescent lights buzzed softly above. Vending machines lined the walls with buttons labeled in Icelandic. The chairs in the waiting room were all molded plastic and identical shades of pale blue. He sat in one, hunched forward, elbows on knees, backpack at his feet. The adrenaline had long since faded. All that remained was the ache in his bones and the crushing awareness that he had missed his one shot. The scholarship interview in Zurich day, one that required in-person attendance, no exceptions had started 3 hours ago. It is over now. His spot, his future, gone. He hadn't told anyone. Not the doctors, not the airline staff, not even Alan Whitmore. Because what would he say? "Sorry, I missed the biggest opportunity of my life because I was busy saving yours?" No, that wasn't who he was. Across the room, Alan paced. His $1,000 loafers squeaked faintly on the tile. His hands, usually so composed in corporate meetings and boardrooms, trembled as they held a paper cup of untouched coffee. The wedding band on his left hand caught the light every time he moved. When a nurse finally stepped through the double doors, both men stood. "Your wife is stable," she said in accented English. "The clot was significant, but the aspirin and oxygen helped stabilize her before arrival. She's being given anticoagulants now. The baby is okay." Alan exhaled a sound between a sob and a prayer. He sank back into the chair like his skeleton gave out. Malik didn't sit. He stood quietly, processing the news. "You saved her," Alan whispered. "You saved both of them." Malik shrugged. "She needed help." Alan turned toward him slowly. "And you missed your interview, didn't you?" Malik didn't answer right away. Then he nodded once, small, quiet. "That was a full ride, wasn't it?" Alan asked. Malik looked at him. "Yes, sir. It was." Alan winced. The silence between them stretched long and tight. Finally, Alan spoke again. "My daughter, when she's born, she's going to live because of you." "She's not born yet," Malik said. "You should go be with your wife." Alan didn't move. "You didn't hesitate. You didn't wait for permission. Why?" Malik glanced down at his hands. They were shaking now, finally. "Because I've seen what happens when help comes too late." Alan studied him. "Have you ever lost someone?" "My mom," Malik said softly. 2 years ago. Breast cancer. I'm sorry. She died before she got the treatment she needed. We didn't have the insurance. She fought as long as she could." Alan's gaze dropped. "But she taught me everything before she went," Malik continued. "She taught me to stay calm, pay attention, do the right thing, even if no one's watching." Alan rubbed his temples. "You shouldn't have had to miss that interview." Malik shrugged again. "You think I regret it?" Alan didn't respond. He didn't need to. 2 hours later, they were allowed into Emily's room. She looked pale, propped up against hospital pillows, an IV in one arm, fetal monitors beeping steadily in the background. But she was alive, breathing, smiling. When she saw Malik, her face lit up. "There you are," she said, her voice raspy but warm. "My hero." Malik froze in the doorway. "I heard everything," she said. "They told me how you figured it out, how you helped me breathe. Thank you." Malik stepped forward awkwardly, holding a small bouquet he'd bought from the hospital gift shop with the last of his spending money. "My mom always said, never visit a patient empty-handed." Emily took the flowers with teary eyes. "I hope you know you saved 2 lives. And I heard about your interview." "It's all right," Malik said. "It'll work out." "No," Alan cut in. "It won't just work out. Not unless we make it." Emily looked from her husband to Malik. "What does he mean?" Alan turned to Malik. "I want to help you. I don't know exactly how yet, but I want to." "I don't need a handout, Mr. Whitmore," Malik replied. "I'm not offering one," Alan said. "I'm offering recognition for what you did, for who you are." Malik folded his arms. "What I did, anyone could have done." "No," Emily said firmly. "Nobody didn't. You did." There was a pause. Alan cleared his throat. "Do you want to go to medical school?" "Yes, sir." "You have the grades? The drive?" Malik smiled faintly. "I've had a plan since I was 13. "I know people," Alan said. "In admissions. I can fund your education. You'll never have to worry about tuition, applications, textbooks, housing, none of it." Malik's jaw clenched slightly. "I appreciate that. Really. But there's something I'd rather ask for." Alan blinked. "All right." Malik looked at Emily, then back at Alan. "My mom's gone, but my aunt, she's my legal guardian. She's got lupus too. Can't work anymore. The local clinic won't take her insurance. Sometimes she skips medication because we can't afford both food and prescriptions." Alan swallowed hard. Malik continued. "She's not the only one. That whole part of Southside's like that. People just forgotten. Nobody listens until someone's dying." He took a breath. "If you really want to help, don't just help me. Help them. Help my neighborhood." Alan blinked. "You're asking me to—" "I'm asking you to build something that lasts. A clinic, a system, something that gives folks a chance before it's too late." Emily's eyes filled with tears. "That's what you want in return for saving our lives?" Malik nodded. I want people to be seen before they're gasping for air. Back in the hotel that night, Alan couldn't sleep. The city outside was blanketed in snow, but inside his mind, a storm was unraveling everything he thought he knew. He had made billions investing in biotech, built an empire out of clinical trials and private hospitals, donated to global causes in developing countries, funded centers in places he'd never visited. But never in the city he called home, never for the people 3 subway stops away from his penthouse. Because he never saw them. Until now. Malik had asked for nothing for himself. No money, no favor, no shortcut. Just a future for others like him. Alan realized Malik hadn't just saved his family. He'd exposed the rot beneath Alan's success. The way he had confused philanthropy with redemption, visibility with value. This wasn't about guilt anymore. It was about responsibility. The next morning, Alan met Malik in the hotel cafe. "I've made a few calls," Alan said. "You'll have a personal interview with Columbia's pre-med program when we get back, and a full scholarship through my foundation. But that's just the start." Malik looked up, surprised. Alan leaned in. "I want to build a clinic. In your neighborhood. Fully staffed. Full-time. With specialists. Not just for show." Malik started, unsure whether to speak. "And I want you on the advisory board," Alan continued. "Part-time. Paid. We'll work around your studies. You'll help us build something real." "Why?" Malik asked softly. "Why would you trust me?" Alan smiled. "Because when everything was falling apart, you were the only one who stood up." Malik didn't say yes immediately. He could have. The offer was right there. A paid advisory role, full scholarship, and a chance to help shape a clinic that would serve his community. It was everything people like him weren't supposed to get. But he asked Alan for time. Not because he didn't trust him. Because real trust was earned slowly, not offered in a flash of gratitude or written into a check. So he flew home to Chicago, back to the 5th-floor walk-up in Inglewood, where the elevator hadn't worked in 6 months, and the hallway smelled like fried onions and bleach. His aunt, Miss Renita, was waiting for him, arms crossed, voice sharp with love. "Boy, you had the internet thinking you're some kind of child prodigy? That was you on that plane?" Malik grinned as she pulled him into a rough hug. Her oxygen tank clinked against the wall, and she muttered, "You smell like Iceland." "I brought you chocolate," he offered. "You brought me your whole future," she said. "Don't think I didn't hear what you told that CEO." They sat at the kitchen table, where the formica had cracked years ago. Malik explained everything what Alan had offered, what he'd said in return. "I told him this isn't about saving me," Malik said. "It's about saving the next me." Miss Renita didn't say much. She just looked at him like she saw something larger than a 17-year-old boy in a hoodie, like she saw a bridge being built between worlds. And maybe she had, long before he ever got on that plane. "You're already standing taller," she said quietly, "but don't forget your shoes are still on the Chicago pavement." "I won't. I mean it. You go in that world, their world, with their glass offices and quiet carpets. Don't let them talk you out of your gut. That's where your power is." A week later, Malik sat in the conference room at Whitmore Therapeutics. The air smelled like coffee and steel. The view stretched out over the Chicago River like a movie set, but Malik barely noticed. He sat across from 6 executives, one of whom had gently asked if he needed a mentor to help him translate his ideas into business terms. Malik smiled, then spoke with the same clarity he used when he placed an oxygen mask on a panicking woman at 36,000 feet. "No offense," he said, "but if the people designing the system don't look like the people using it, then we're not building a clinic, we're building a monument." Alan watched from the end of the table, silent, proud. Malik laid it out. A walk-in model, open 7 days a week. Full-time doctors with cultural competency training. A mobile unit for seniors who couldn't manage stairs or public transit. On-site social workers who knew Medicaid inside and out. A pharmacy that stocked meds people actually needed, not just what insurers reimbursed best. One of the execs raised an eyebrow. And what's your role in all this exactly? I'm the one who lives there, Malik said. I know who gets overlooked, who doesn't get believed, who dies quietly. The room went still. It was the kind of stillness that followed truth. And Malik? He didn't flinch. He didn't fold. He just looked them in the eye and reminded them that dignity didn't require permission. 2 months later, ground broke on the Whitmore Community Health Huba, sleek, modern building rising right where an old liquor store used to stand. Kids from the neighborhood gathered behind the safety fencing, watching the cranes. Aunties peered from porches. Elders whispered about that boy with the hoodie. Who did all this? Malik stood beside Alan and Emily at the ceremony. Cameras flashed. Reporters jostled. Emily was visibly pregnant now, one hand resting protectively on her belly. But Malik wasn't smiling in the photos. He was watching the crowd behind the barricades, the people this place was really for. A young boy with cornrows held up a handmade sign. Someone saw us. That was the moment it landed for Malik. He wasn't just the kid on the plane anymore. He wasn't just a symbol. He was a connector, a translator, a bridge. And he didn't need to raise his voice or prove himself to anyone anymore. The work was proving it for him. He still walked to school, still rode the same CTA bus, still held his aunt's hand on hard days. But people greeted him differently now. Not like a hero, like a neighbor who didn't disappear when he got successful. A city councilwoman offered him a paid internship. He turned it down, said the clinic needed him more. Columbia University offered early admission. He accepted, but with conditions. I'll be away for half the week, he said. My people still need me. No one argued. Because when you carry yourself like power doesn't make you louder, it makes you quieter. People start listening without being asked. One evening, after helping a senior patient fill out Medicaid renewal forms, Malik walked out into the Chicago dusk. The air smelled like rain on pavement and summer on the edge of fall. A woman stopped him on the sidewalk. You're that boy, aren't you? The one from the flight? Malik nodded softly. She looked at him, eyes tired but kind. I lost my son last year. Heart failure. He waited too long to get help. I'm sorry, Malik said. She nodded. I just wanted to say thank you. Not for saving that woman, but for staying. Then she walked on. Malik stood still for a moment. Not because he didn't know where to go, but because he finally understood the weight he was carrying. And for the first time, it didn't feel heavy. It felt right. 6 months later, on a quiet Sunday morning, the doors of the Whitmore Community Health Hub opened for the very first time. There were no red carpets, no ribbon-cutting spectacle, just a linlong and winding of Chicago residents bundled in winter coats, waiting in the snow. Some had come for prescriptions, others for checkups, vaccines, or just to ask the kinds of questions they never had the courage or resources to voice before. Inside the building, everything was intentional. Soft lighting, neutral colors, waiting rooms with real chairs, not the cold molded plastic that said we're only pretending to care. Art on the walls, donated by local high school students, diagrams in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. Receptionists are trained to ask, how can we help you? Not, what's your insurance? And above the front desk, etched into a panel of oak, we see you, we hear you, you matter. Malik stood in the lobby that morning, adjusting the name badge clipped to his sweater. Malik Johnson, community director. Still 17, still in school, but no longer invisible. He wasn't a guest in the system anymore. He was helping rebuild it from the inside. Across the city, in a private hospital suite near Lincoln Park, Emily Whitmore cradled her newborn daughter in her arms. She had named her Talia Beatrice Whitmore after her grandmother, and a woman she'd never met but owed her life to. Strong little lungs, the nurses had said. Stubborn, just like her mama, Alan had grinned. But Emily had looked into her daughter's eyes and seen something else entirely. Grace. The kind you only understand after coming that close to losing everything. A week after the clinic opened, Emily and Alan made their first visit. They didn't come in a limo. Alan parked his own car around the corner and carried the baby seat up the steps himself. Malik met them at the front door. Talia slept soundly, bundled in a knit blanket. Emily handed her to Malik gently, like she was passing him a piece of something sacred. "I want her to grow up knowing where her story really began," Emily said. "And who helped write it." Malik looked down at the baby. She wriggled slightly, a soft sigh escaping her lips. "She's beautiful," he whispered. "She's here because of you," Alan said quietly. Malik shook his head. "She's here because people listen." They made their way to the main hallway, where a new wing of the clinic had just been completed. The sign above the arch read, "The Johnson Whitmore Center for Community Wellness." Inside the first room on the right, medical students from local universities were already helping elders navigate digital health apps. At a table near the window, a nurse was showing a teen mom how to swaddle her newborn with confidence. Alan walked to the wall and touched a bronze plaque just beneath the room's name. "In honor of those who do the work when no one's watching, for the ones who save lives with quiet hands and louder hearts." The quote was unsigned, but everyone knew who it belonged to. That night, Malik returned home, still wearing his name badge. Miss Renita was in her chair, watching old episodes of Family Feud, her oxygen machine humming softly beside her. She turned down the volume when she saw him come in. "They told me your little fancy clinic had a line around the corner this morning," she said. "Guess people heard we're open," he replied. She looked at him for a long moment. "You did good, baby," she said, voice thick. Malik sat at the edge of the couch, suddenly 17 again. "Remember when I was little and I used to say I wanted to be a superhero?" he asked. "You wanted a cape and a mask," she smiled. "You wanted to fly." He nodded. "Never thought it would look like this." She reached out and placed a hand on him. "This?" she said. "This is better. You ain't saving people from aliens. You are saving them from being ignored." He didn't answer, just leaned into her shoulder, resting for the first time in months. She didn't say another word, just let him sit there. By spring, the clinic had helped over 2,000 residents. The diabetes program had prevented 30 hospitalizations. The prenatal wing delivered 9 healthy babies. The therapy room hosted support groups for grief, addiction, and healing from trauma. None of it made the front page, but it made people feel seen. And for Malik, that was more than enough. Then came a letter, a formal envelope stamped from Columbia University. Inside, his full acceptance to their pre-med program. Not a provisional slot, not a favor. Earned. The scholarship bore his name now. The Malik Johnson Future Healers Award, created by the Whitmore Foundation for underrepresented students in medicine. When Malik called to tell Miss Renita, she wept. Then I laughed. "You better not forget about Chicago now," she warned. "Never," he said. "This city's written in my blood." On the morning of his departure, Malik stood one last time outside the clinic. He watched as 2 boys from the block rode their bikes past the front entrance. One of them pointed and said, "That's the place I'm going to work someday." Malik smiled. "I hope so." Then he turned and walked away, backpack on one shoulder, heart full. A year later, at Columbia, he wore his white coat for the first time. His hands trembled slightly as he buttoned it. A photographer snapped a picture for the incoming class announcement. The caption read, "From Southside to Scrubs, future doctor builds backwards, not upward." When he saw the headline, Malik laughed. It wasn't wrong. He was building backward. Not climbing away from his roots, but planting deeper into them. Because this was never about getting out. It was about bringing everything back in. And one day, maybe years from now, a young kid in a hoodie will walk through the doors of that clinic, heart pounding with questions no one ever taught him how to ask. And someone, maybe a nurse, maybe a doctor, maybe just a receptionist, will smile and say, "We're glad you're here." And that moment, simple as it sounds, will be the continuation of a legacy born not from wealth or fame, but from a plane, a pause, and a boy who refused to stay silent when it mattered most. And maybe that's the quiet revolution, when one act of courage opens a door not just for yourself, but for everyone still waiting outside. Malik didn't change the world in a single day. He simply chose to see it differently, to answer the moment with heart instead of hesitation. And that choice rippled outward, touching lives he never expected, and building something meant to last. Real power doesn't raise its voice. It raises the people no one sees. If this story moved you, we'd love to hear how. Leave a comment, share it with someone who needs a reminder of their own worth, and subscribe for more stories that lift from the inside out. Stay tuned.